The fact is, a lot of brands struggle trying to decide what content to create for their employer brand. I mean, how do you know what content is really going to appeal to a variety of candidate audience? We're going to be answering those questions and a lot more on this episode of the 10X Candidate Experience Show, so stick around. Would you like to increase the quality of your candidate pool? Then tell stories. Would you like to increase your candidate conversion rates? Then tell stories. Would you like to increase your offer acceptance rates? Then tell stories. Are you looking to increase your employer brand's reach across social media channels? Then you should absolutely be telling stories. Stories are the best way to communicate your company culture. And communicating a company culture is at the very heart of what it means to be inside of employer branding. Throughout history, there's been no better way that humans can truly have an impact on each other's lives than through telling stories. Stories have been proven to be inextricably linked to what it means to be human. If you're looking to have a deeper connection with candidates and employees, it's really important to tell those stories. Our guest is a marketing strategist and content creator. She's passionate about communicating with people and businesses and helping others do the same. On today's show, we're going to be discussing how to develop a content marketing strategy that will have a massive impact on your employer brand. Please welcome to the show, Jessica McFadden.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's one of those great things that happen from connecting on LinkedIn. I'm so excited to be on the show.
Fantastic. Welcome to the 10XCX show. This is one of the conversations that I've been looking forward to since, we booked this recording session. We just jump right in here. We don't get into a whole lot of fanfare, okay?
All right.
Job postings and job ads have been pretty much the de facto medium that companies been using to promote their employer brand and filling a lot of their open positions. Telling stories is an incredibly powerful way for employer brands to really engage their prospective candidates and applicants. So why aren't more companies using stories to promote their employer brand?
I don't know, because we at Stories Inc. know that stories are the best way to communicate. And we're really passionate about helping companies tell their stories through employee stories. And that's where we differ from some other places. I think that a lot of us in the industry know that storytelling is where it's at, and that's the best content and the best way to connect. But we believe also that employee stories are very key.
So I had a conversation with David Choka he's the CEO over at Video My Job. And in their latest report, it's called the State of Video and Talent for 2021. 90% of companies they surveyed said the biggest challenges to adopting video was in their employer branding effort was really time and effort for creating those videos. And 86% said that motivating employees to create videos was difficult at best, right? So you have any ideas on how to overcome those two issues?
Of course. Well, it's really hard to have employees do it just on their own. Like, hey, in addition to all the million things you have going on, can you go tell a story and make sure that you look good and you sound good and that it's great content? And by the way, we're going to judge you after we see the finished product. And so that's where we come in. We help companies facilitate the stories and make that easy on the employees to be able to share their story, and then also easy on the company to create that content. So we think the key is to facilitate the interview with the employee, and then you're going to be able to draw out those great stories that really communicate culture.
What kind of stories or content will have the most impact on an employer branding effort for a company?
Well, some of the most important and compelling stories are going to be ones that are highly personal. And it seems like it might be contradictory if you hear a story from employee John that's going to be a highly personal story about what it's like to work at company B. But actually, when John goes intensely personal about his experience working at that company. Now it's authentic and believable. It's completely original. And all of a sudden you've connected with the listener, with the viewer, with the candidate, with the consumer, and you have communicated culture in a way that has completely bypassed all of the corporate boilerplate and jargon. Now you've really gotten to the heart of it. And all of a sudden, you can connect with that company and want to buy from them or work with them or stay with them if you're a current employee.
Yeah, what I like to do is, we create employer brand videos all the time too, right? So if you're building out your recruitment marketing efforts, you need to identify really the candidate audience that you're trying to attract. And if you can find a story internally that you think that candidate audience can put themselves in that person's shoes and say, yeah, I'd like to experience that too, or have it show from their perspective, and I want it too, right? That fear of loss or fear or that wanting of, hey, I want that experience is really powerful in developing an emotional connection between the audience or the candidate audience and a current employee, if you will. So,
absolutely. Yeah, you only get that emotional connection that you mentioned when it's something that's really personal that can only be told by that person. It was their real lived experience. And that's what differentiates a story from a testimonial, because you can get employees on camera talking and they might say the same thing. Their hairstyle might be different. They might work at a different place, but you put some testimonials side by side and they're often very similar.
how it's said is so much more powerful than what is being said, right? So, how do you identify those stories internally, right? I mean, these are personal stories to me, or how, what my either hiring process was, or what challenges I had on finding this job, or what were some of the great things. How do you kind of root out those stories from your employee base?
Well, we at StorySync, we work with the talent brand, talent acquisition, recruitment marketing teams at a company and help them strategize what are the people that are going to be able to tell them the stories that are going to help connect with the audiences they're trying to reach. So we'll strategize that with them as to, if you're trying to build your sales team, let's get some of the people on your sales team, and let's make sure that you have a variety of different voices from those sales team members, for example. But then once you get into the interview process, our project team are experts at really connecting with the employees and having a great rapport with them in order to draw out stories that are original, completely new, compelling, and something that's going to work to really help tell the overall company story.
I really feel that this is a community effort, right? You can't just have one person in charge. It really needs to have an executive leader, if you will, but also a great analogy I had was I just watched a YouTube video on how the Amish can raise an entire barn in less than 24 hours. They get the entire community together and everybody's got a task, and they just, they put up the walls, and then they put on the roof, and then they do all the painting and stuff like that. And they execute those tasks with amazing precision, and it's extremely well coordinated. Companies aren't going to start off that way, right? How do they develop a plan to kind of stumble along the way, but get there eventually?
Internally, all organizations are so different. Sometimes we are working with an employer branding team. Other times we're working with talent acquisition. Others we're working with the marketing team. But we can serve as like a little barn raising contractor to come into the organization and help, because people are so busy and teams are so lean. And so we can help make that easy for them and help get everybody, working on raising the barn. So we're like the Jimmy Carter that comes in and helps build the house really quick, and it helps bring everybody together, and to take that off your plate, as being an external agency that can help, because everybody else is doing 8 things at once. It's rare that you have somebody in an organization that is only working on creating recruitment marketing and employer branding, employee engagement content.
When you're creating content, Do you discuss with them about, hey, what's your objective for creating all this employer brand content? Can we go over what are some of the main goals or main objectives for creating employer brand content?
So, with the companies we've worked with, especially in this past calendar year, a lot of it has been recruitment marketing content. And whether that is going to be for their overall career site or for specific different silos where they are really, ramping up recruiting for people. We also have done a great deal of diversity inclusion content. And that can be overall for a company, it can be within different departments. It can be to show solidarity and allyship and learning and progress in different areas of diversity and inclusion, to show the journey, whether it's for race or pride or age groups and all of that. So that's been a really important part of the content we've developed this year, especially as companies kind of responded to the societal reckoning and awakening that, oh yeah, diversity and inclusion is kind of important, and that it's not something that you can just paint over with one happy D&I video, that it actually needs to be content that is communicating throughout all of your content. So how do you weave that in there? So that's why we create a lot of content libraries for companies. So we develop a suite of content that they can draw from across departments and across their different channels.
Yeah, what I've noticed, anytime a company is brand new at adopting anything, especially creating video content or employer branding content, is they have a tendency to think that, oh yeah, I'm just going to create this quick little 2-minute video, 5-minute video, and then I'm going to see how it does, right? And that's not how employer branding videos really works, right? If you think about it, I think it's something like 1.2 years worth of content is uploaded to YouTube every single day, right? So if you think your little 5-minute video, or even if it's an hour-long video, is going to make a dent in your overall employer brand, you are sorely mistaken. This takes a lot of time, money, effort, and it needs to be a strategy that's well thought out and very clearly defined objectives. On our side, we deal in specific recruitment marketing. We do a little bit on the employer branding, but definitely more on the recruitment marketing, where we're trying to sell the story of why a candidate would want to come work for a company, a department, or specifically a single hiring manager. So we tend to get the hiring manager very involved. We do capture those employee stories, if you will, but really, it's all about driving traffic. That's what my clients are really looking for, is how much traffic, how soon, and how fast can we make a hire. So time to fill, cost per hire is what they're really looking for. What kind of metrics are your clients really looking for?
They're similar to the ones you just mentioned. We don't always get a ton of feedback from them, because if it works, we don't hear
the hire, they're done. Thanks.
Right. But we do really emphasize the hiring manager video, because that's really compelling content for a candidate. A candidate, one of their top questions is, who's going to be my boss? Who am I going to work for? And so weaving in within your company culture story, weaving in the hiring manager videos, as well as the team member, someone like you who is thriving in the role, that's great content too. When you capture a series of employee stories, say you're at a company for a day and capturing lots of different employee stories, you have now this great potential to optimize the content you're creating for each different channel, whether it's for your career site or for your LinkedIn site or for your Glassdoor review site, or if you wanted to optimize it for the particular candidates.
That's a great point, right? Most companies that we speak to have no idea how and where to distribute this content, right? They think that it should only be housed on their corporate site, that they've got 100% control of it, or they push it out on YouTube and, okay, we're done, right? They don't understand that having a video out on YouTube, it just gets swallowed up in a matter of minutes, right? So this is really, they've got to optimize the description, they've got to optimize the title of the video. There's a lot more than just recording that video that goes into it. What kind of distribution strategies do you guys deploy?
Well, we help the companies with what to do with it after they have received their employee stories and their different videos. We help them put together a distribution plan. We sometimes will be very detailed, and other times it'll just be tips. You know, how are your recruiters going to use this? How are they going to use it within their emails? But also, we develop and actually edit and optimize different pieces of content per channel, because the best length for employee Jane's story is going to be a different length if you're going to be sharing it on your Instagram channel versus your LinkedIn channel versus, you know, TikTok. I mean, there's so many different channels. So we will not only advise how to use it, but which links and which versions of things to use.
That's one of the biggest mistakes that I see a lot of companies do. For example, somebody, candidate goes to the, career site, they apply to a job, and then they get a generic email thanking them for their application, right? That's a perfect opportunity to incorporate video. What kind of video? You should include a video testimonial from a candidate or from an employee from that category of job. So if it's a sales position or marketing or advertising, or let's say it's in manufacturing, then you should have employee stories ready to go as thumbnails and links in that email confirmation. And then you should follow up with additional emails every 3 to 6 days at least. That's what we like to do, is make sure you've got a content calendar and a distribution strategy that is ensuring that you're engaging candidates throughout the entire hiring process, not just up until they apply and submit their resume. But that's not where the apply process ends, right? The application process, you're still convincing candidates up until the day they join your organization, right? They accept that offer, they still have to show up. So a first day video is great from the hiring manager. Onboarding videos. Hey, this is how you get to our office. These are some quick little videos of walking up to the door, and here's the receptionist, and here's how you sign in and get your badge and all that, those fun things. There's lots of opportunities for incorporating video.
Absolutely. And there's two things that I would add to that is that, one, you can use every employee story. Maybe you captured it on video with someone telling about why they love working someplace. But you can use that story not only as a video, but as other types of content too. So you can take the transcript from that video interview and create a great blog post content. You can do professional photography of that person while they already look all adorable because they're having their video taken that day. Take some professional photography and create a graphic with a quote, the most pull quote that they said,
like a meme kind of thing, if you will.
And use it as a graphic. As a graphic to use across your different channels. You can use that as an ad, and then also all of this content, the videos, all of the stories, and whatever format you've put them in, they're great for using with your current employees as employee engagement content to help them, connect again to the employer brand so they stay. So we often are hired to create recruitment marketing content, but it can be used across the organization by the marketing department for consumers, but also internally to remind, especially in a big organization, employees of why they love the culture.
Employers really need to understand the value of the content that they have already within their organization, right? If you record an hour-long video, you should be taking that video and slicing and dicing the heck out of it, just like I do with this podcast or a video cast. I take a 1-hour conversation and I slice it up into 30 or 40 different little 1-minute snippets, little talking points here and there. I use them as hooks. I use them as intros in other videos, or inviting guests to be a guest on our show. I use it to increase our readership in our blog posts. So I incorporate those into our blog posts, little video snippets. I also incorporate a lot of those into our articles and things like that, just little video snippets in our articles. So there's a lot of different areas in your chatbots. This is great. Hey, I recorded a
Yes.
quick little 2-minute snippet from our thing, our last episode. Use them there, right? Anything that's going to constantly keep that candidate pool engaged in meaningful conversation about your brand is valuable to your organization. So just don't think of it. And blooper reels. Blooper reels have the highest engagement of all. I'm telling you, it doesn't say, it says a lot about your organization if you can laugh about yourself, right?
Absolutely.
So,
For
like
sure.
all of my blooper reels from all the episodes throughout the year, summarize it down to like a 1 or 2 minute blooper reel at the end of the year. We usually do that like right around New Year's and stuff, just to kind of laugh at ourselves.
Oh, that's so fun.
Yep.
But it is really important you can think of stories as standalone stories,
Yeah.
just give one person's perspective room to really honor that story and room to kind of breathe, but then also chop it up and compile lots of different voices together to tell either your overall company culture story or to tell a specific aspect of culture. And we see that a lot with, especially with diversity inclusion content, because you can't just salve your white head of the company say, hey, this is a really diverse company to work for, and then you just have to believe them just because they made the video. That's not enough. You need to show that different people in your organization have different perspectives of why they think things all work together well.
Video is a perfect medium for that, right? Showing the diversity, not just saying that we are diverse. There's a big difference between it. So inside of your overall strategies, can you give me the top 3 things a company should avoid when just starting out telling their employee stories?
The first piece of advice I would give is to treat the employee storytelling or video making process as a big deal and as something very special, because it is. This isn't something that is just going to be knocked off in an hour that we have here, and people are just going to zoom in and say something amazing. And we hired a videographer who's going to be here for 2 hours. It's, you really want to honor the experience and make the whole process feel very special, because it is. You want the employee storytellers to feel like this is their moment, and that, we have found at least that people are very honored and excited to share. And some companies even have used this as like an employee recognition moment, because you're giving them a voice and you're amplifying it and you're photographing them. And it's just, so I just think that
It's a big deal, right? I mean, a lot of people are afraid to get their picture taken, let alone be on camera and have that, knowing that that's going to be sent out on the company website or to potentially tens of thousands of candidates, right? So they get camera shy, they get videography freeze, they don't know what to say, they stumble. We had a recruiter, very experienced recruiter, 20 years experience, and we were just recording a video voicemail that he's left probably a billion times over the course of his 20-year career. And we got him on video, and it literally took him like 82 takes to get this video. He just froze up in front of the camera. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn the camera off, and here's a phone, just record it, boom. First take.
Right.
So you have to have a knowledgeable videographer that really knows how to capture that personality and ask the right questions and elicit the right responses. How do you what kind of questions are you asking during your interviews?
Well, we have a full team there. So we have, a very experienced and lovely and easygoing, but very astute team of videographers. But then we also have our project managers who are the interviewers. So, and those project managers and content strategists, they have already built a rapport. So that's my other, word of advice for number 2, second piece of advice is build a rapport between the interviewer who's facilitating the stories with the employee storyteller before the camera turns on. So our project team has been lightly prepping them, helping them feel comfortable, giving them tips for the day. It's not scripted, and that's something that we do differently than some organizations, because we want them to really just share their authentic stories. But we do already hit the record button, already a friend with that employee storyteller. So that employee storyteller already knows that Jessica is there to make them look and sound good. We already know each other's kids' names. We have already built that rapport. So now the content that we're capturing is her speaking to a friend. So that's something that's really important. So we do make a big deal out of it because it is a big deal. And that's an easier way, we think, to dispel any stage fright, is to be like, yeah, you're going to be honored and you're going to be on camera, and sure, get your hair done. And yeah, we can do it on Thursday, which is the day that you have great daycare. Like, yeah, this is a cool deal. But then secondly, have a very friendly, easygoing rapport so that they feel comfortable.
Give them some swag, whatever, t-shirt, little mug, whatever. Get them in a really good mood, because, that happiness, that enthusiasm is going to come across in the video, right? And that's what it's important. It's important, I think, that you really, authenticity, you kind of mentioned it earlier, right? If you can afford to have a professional video team come out and do all those videos, absolutely. But I don't like saying that should be prohibiting you from creating content. Everybody has one of these. So record, record, record. Fail fast, fail forward. And it doesn't really matter, because you never have to post it if it doesn't work out. If your video doesn't work out because the lighting is bad or the audio is bad, then don't post it. But you should absolutely be recording it. When we're doing our recording sessions, we push play from the time they enter the room, or we push record from the time they enter the room, because I don't know when the best answer to the question is going to come out. It's never like, okay, I'm going to record this specific answer to this specific question. I might do that for like an intro or a hook, but I always just keep recording, because you never know what moments are going to be captured.
True. You also help them set up. So on one hand, it doesn't have to be like overly produced and like, cinema quality. But at the same time, before you started interviewing me, you made sure that my lighting looked good, that I sounded okay. So therefore, I was already feeling comfortable before, we were really live. So that's something that we do too. Before the interview begins, especially if we're doing one of our virtual interviews, because we do it in person and also virtually, we get the employee storyteller all set up. We walk through
it can be really intimidating walking into like a conference room with, you've got the box light here, you've got the shadow light here, you've got the hair light over here, and then you've got the backdrop. It can be really intimidating for a lot of people to walk into that. Some people love that kind of attention, but when I first started recording, I was absolutely horrible, stumbling over my words. I still stumble, but I just click stop and rewind and hit play or hit record again, right? It's all digital, so it can just be re-recorded if it doesn't work out. We've covered kind of the top 3 things companies should avoid. You gave some great examples there. What are some top 3 things that companies should absolutely, the first 3 things they should do in capturing employee stories? So you start off, hey, we don't even know where to start, Jessica. Like, where do we even start?
Well, we hear that question a lot, and we actually created a resource, especially if someone is new to their employer brand manager position and they want to start a project and create some new content to use fast. So we devised some little project starters so that could help them if they want to be able to create content and show, in their first 100 days on a job that they are moving and shaking and creating new content. So I don't mean to be like, oh, come to storiesincorporated.com, but we do have a little resource there if you want it. But something to think about is see where your biggest hiring goals or employer branding, holes lie, and start identifying employees who fit the role of somebody you want to hire again. Start capturing their stories, make sure they look and sound great and are comfortable. Don't just ask them in their off hours if they're already working really hard to do it on their iPhone themselves. Facilitate it for them and get it all set up for them. Interview them, talk with them, ask them to share specific examples of times of their experience there. Help them avoid just kind of generic overarching language, even if that overarching kind of generic-y language sounds like what you hope people perceive of your company. I can bring my full self to work. We're like a family. We work hard, we play hard. Those things are things you hear everywhere. But if you hear a specific story from an individual of a time where they felt so valued or so happy or so surprised, and tell us about that time, tell us about that day, tell us more, give us the details. When your candidate hears that story, that's what's going to make them want to work there. Even if it's impossible for them to have that same experience, it's still going to resonate and show your real culture.
And that's important, right? So if you want to tell those stories, then it's important to ask the right questions and to elicit those stories. So if you're trying to say or get a story about, hey, when did you know that this was the right company to work for? Or when were you most excited to join your team? When you start asking those types of questions, then you really start getting much different questions than, why did you join, our company or things like that, right? So you have to ask questions in a certain way to elicit a certain response. And we use a specific framework to make sure that we're asking the right questions. And believe me, they don't always have to be positive experiences. Now, hopefully it is a positive experience with your brand. I would never share a negative experience, but you want to share some challenges and difficulties and how that person overcame those challenges and difficulties just as much as, if not more than, those positive experiences. Those are really what, hey, I was going through this, let's say, project, and I was having a difficult time with my hiring manager and blah, 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 blah. And then I went to, boom, and got some advice on how to handle this certain situation. And now I was able to, because we were able to collaborate and work as a team, blah, blah, blah. So you identified a specific problem and then how they solved it or what the solution was internally. And that can really help differentiate your company, showing that you're more collaborative or, have really high regards for communication style, things like that, right? So
Absolutely.
Uncovering some of those challenges is important as well.
Oh, for sure. And also how your company or your culture or your coworkers, your colleagues supported you during your hardest times. So the pandemic we have received so many amazing stories about this terrible time in all of our lives collectively, and so much harder for some individuals than others and some industries than others. But we have heard so many great stories of how exactly the company has supported them during the trials of COVID-19. Through how they were supported while they were caring for children or older people in their family, how they were supported working remotely, how they were supported as essential workers, working harder than they've ever worked in their lives. Those stories, they're not like as glowing as the time that your coworkers threw you a surprise baby shower. But, those stories of how the company really showed up for you, they resonate, and they are telling current candidates that are looking who may not have received the type of support that they wanted. And now we're in the great resignation, the talent tsunami, all of those euphemisms for this, where people are really looking because we were all on hold with our job searches for a while, right? Those stories of how you got good support mean so much. And your old content and your old videos that show like the beer on tap and the snacks and the company outing where you went ziplining, they are kind of obsolete now. The story about how it was totally fine for you to take all your meetings with 3 preschoolers in the background, that one is really key.
or the dog walking in through the door completely.
I know.
It's part of daily life working at home. I've got a dog and 3 cats, and sometimes I'm recording something and a cat will jump up behind me. What are you going to do? It's part of being at home, right?
I hear you. I have a dog, 2 cats, and 3 children.
There you go.
And we were in an area, I live in Washington, D.C., or right outside of Washington, D.C., hit really hard by COVID. And my kids are in public school that was online for a year and a half. And they were the special guest stars of all of my videos.
Any episode. That's awesome. See, they're going to go down in history, right?
Right.
Get their
We're
own
all the
Twitter feed,
BBC
right?
dad now. Like, that's not even like, it wouldn't even be a thing these days.
So your kids are probably much younger than mine. My kids were teenagers. So while we were all working from home, they're going to school at home, and they literally never left their bedrooms.
Right.
So,
No, I have teenagers too. I have,
okay.
my kids are 18, 15, and 10. So I have 2 in high school, 1 in elementary. And yeah, my husband and I are both working online. The kids are online. Yeah, we were just like cyborgs in our different rooms,
Yep. So any last thoughts?
Capture those stories and don't let any of the concerns and the worries of the world keep you from getting the really specific, true, individual stories from people. It's easy to get, all of your different goals and bottom lines and projections in your head and have that kind of take over and feed scripts to the employees. I've been there and I know it's so difficult, but if you
No scripts, people, no scripts.
Get out of your head.
It's okay for a hook or like an introduction. If you don't know what a hook is, look at some of my other videos, right? But most of your content should be unscripted content. You ask a question, you let them answer, and you compile like 100 people's answers, and you take the best 10 or 20. You save the other ones for later, right? But you push that content out. You don't have to publish every single one or every single answer to every question. That's the way I do it. So you're going to get a lot.
Save it all. Save it all, because a day's worth of interviews, you could have a year's worth of content.
Yeah.
All these different pieces woven together on their own, different channels, different links, different background music. Oh my goodness. It's such, just taking that day.
You don't know what's going to resonate with the candidate or the candidate audience. You may think you know, but I had no idea beforehand. The first time I produced that blooper video of all my episodes, and it got like 10,000 likes or whatever, I had no idea that blooper video was going to increase my followers and things like that, right? So I just threw it out there because I was bored between Christmas and New Year's. We didn't have an episode. I was like, let's put a blooper reel together. What the heck? So we threw it out there, and it was, easily the most watched video of the entire year. So you never know what's going to resonate with the audience, right?
Oh yeah. Just keep entertaining. Not only are you informing, but you're entertaining too. You can always throw in some B-roll and photographs in amongst the talking heads and the stories to really like bring it to life and keep that viewer engaged. And bloopers, bloopers are great. So
notice, everybody, that we didn't say get your executives in front of the video and record them only. No, we want it up and down the food chain, right? Everybody and anybody inside the organization has a story to tell. So you should be collecting all of those stories, not just the top echelon executive stories. Honestly, people are most likely going to connect with people that are in the positions that they are working right now. So if I'm an account executive or account manager, then have account managers, record all of them, right? If you're customer service, then record a ton of customer service. If you're on the manufacturing floor, show the manufacturing floor and what it's like on a day-to-day, right? So those are all important to really allow those people to put themselves in a day in the life of. Jessica, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation. Thank you for joining me today. Any other last things you want to mention?
No, if you want to talk more about stories, you can go to storiesincorporated.com, and we have a lot of you don't have to talk with me, you can just see kind of we really try and put as many resources. It's not salesy stuff. It's our website is really optimized for being a resource so that everyone can capture incredible stories of members of their team.
All right, everybody, thank you so much. Make it a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.